Hello everyone, I'm Colin Canet. You can see I'm standing in front of my bandsaw today. Today we're going to test Tearout on the bandsaw. Before I get started today, I want to remind you to check the description box underneath this video. It's got links to the article, the t-shirts, and all the other things that I'm involved with as well. Now, to get started, I had an email quite a few days ago now, or maybe weeks ago, from Marcus asking me what tips I have to avoid tear out on the bandsaw. And I had to admit I'd really never even tried to avoid tear out on the bandsaw, but it's something that I didn't know what we could do. I would look at it and see if there was something that we could do. Now, to be honest with you, I'm pretty skeptical that we can do, that there's anything that we can do. I don't think there's any way of avoiding tear out on the bandsaw. If you've been following my channel, you'll know that anytime we've tried the tear out testing, the zero clearance and all the rest of that, basically nothing works except a good quality blade, and I kind of think the same thing is going to be true on the bandsaw. But today we're going to be testing a few materials. I'm going to be testing double-sided melamine. This is an industry standard to test this stuff, because if it passes melamine, double-sided melamine, it'll pass anything. But I'm also going to test some plywood and some natural wood and just kind of see what kind of results we get. Now, there's only a couple techniques that we can use today that we can try and avoid tear out on the bandsaw. And of course, one of them is using masking tape. And if you've been following my channel, you'll know that we've had zero success using masking tape to avoid tear out. But we're going to try it today just because you never know. The other thing that we're going to do is I'm going to use this very thin piece of plywood. It's some scrap plywood that I have, and I'm going to make another tabletop. I'm basically going to make a zero clearance top to fit over top of my bandsaw, and I'll have to temporarily, I'll just have to tape it down on there so that we see what kind of results we can get. So what I'm going to do today, you can see that I've marked the ends of these pieces of wood here. I'm going to mark 1 and 2 on all of these pieces of wood, like that. And I'm going to draw a center line, a little mark where the center, roughly the center of the board. Now what I'm going to do off camera is I'm going to put some tape on one of these or the other. Then I'm going to run them through the bandsaw. And then I'm going to show you the results without the tape on, and then I'm going to reveal to you where the tape actually was and see if we can see where there was actually a difference. So let's see how this works. So there's that cut, and I didn't go all the way through so that we made sure we left it on there. And one of these sides had tape on, but you can see tear out basically all the way along. And it depends where it is. Sometimes it's worse than others, but there's basically tear out all the way along. And there's the plywood. I know these aren't ideal circumstances, but you can see basically all the way along, there's basically tear out all the way along, and I think it's easier actually to see on the camera this time. Now let's put the final one up there, and that's that one. And it's a little bit harder to see, and that's why I like using the melamine, because it's harder to see on some of these woods. The melamine is an easier one to see, but you can obviously see some tear out down here. I can see it up here, but I can see on the camera it's not as visible, but there's basically tear out all the way along there. Okay, so there's the cuts through all of the tape, and I'm taking the tape off now, and I'm going to show you the cuts. So that was 2 on the melamine, and it's 1 on the plywood, and 1 on the natural wood. Okay, well there's the test and the three pieces together. Of course, the tape was on 2, 1, and 1. And if we look at the plywood test, the one side definitely looks a little bit better, but I think what we're seeing here is just the tape sort of lifting off some of these little hairy bits that are left on there from Tearout, and if you run your finger over those, you're probably going to get an identical look on both sides. In fact, when we go to the natural wood, the number 1 actually looks worse because again you can see those little pieces that sort of clung onto the wood there. So you know, there's an opposite result there. And when we get to the melamine, which is really the test that I really like to use, and this is the non-tape side. And on this test, there is a little bit tiny more tear out down here than there is on the tape. Now the next thing I'm going to do is make a zero clearance throat plate for the bandsaw, and I'm basically going to run this material straight through, and then I really don't have much other choices on this because this is an aluminum top here. So if this worked out, I'd actually work out a way of fastening it down permanently, but for right now I'm just going to tape it down and then we'll run the tests. Well, there you have the results of all of the tests. Of course, the tape was 2, 1, and 1. You can see the differences there yourself. And the lower cuts, of course, are the zero clearance throat plate. And for me, I don't see anything significant here that I would say, oh, I'm going to change my techniques because there's such a reduction in tear out. As far as I'm concerned, they're all unacceptable. And I think again, what we saw before is the only thing that would really make a big difference would be if someone manufactured a zero clearance, or sorry, a zero tear out bandsaw blade, and I've never heard of such a thing, but you never know what's out there. But there you have the results. Well, that concludes my video for today. You know, I love doing this kind of thing because how else, unless we try these things and do them, are we going to know if we need to change or adapt some of the things that we're already doing? And today you can see what the results are. But you know, you may be getting different results depending on your equipment, depending on your bandsaw blades, even the material that you're using. So I encourage you to do some quick little tests yourself just to see what it might do with your equipment and your wood. I'm Colin Canet for Woodwork Web. Thanks for watching.